think it was more or less giving Māori that power, so that leadership power, so putting them in those roles that will make those changes and giving them those end call decisions. You need to go in the direction of the audience that you're going for.
Rauranga tira mā, tēnā koutou katoa. Nau mai ki tēnei kōnei ipurangi ko Ao Mai Te Rā te ingoa. Welcome to this podcast, Ao Mai Te Rā, about racism, how to understand it and what we can do to get rid of it. We've got a wonderful guest with us today. He uri tēnei no Ngāti Maru ki Hauraki, no Ngāti Raukawa, no Ngāti Pikiao hoki. Braila Mottram, kia ora, ngā mihi nui ki a koe. So, Braila, tell us a bit about your background and how you come to be a Māori advisor at Te Herenga Hauora at this point.
Yeah, it's a weird ride, but we got there. So I had my baba when I was 17 and I was like, okay, I'm not going to be that Māori young mama who dropped out of high school. So I was like, I'm going to do high school, and then I didn't know what to do. So I was like, I'm going to go to uni. Wasn't too interested in all the Englishy kind of things or math or science because I'm not good at it. And so then I did crim because it interested me with a bit of sociology on the side. And I did all that, and there were a couple of setbacks just because being a young mama in life and working and all that good stuff. But my main goal was to do something for me and my son and to get a full-time job that wasn't a hospo and actually make something of myself. And so then I graduated in last December with, criminology and sociology. I happened to just be working a temp job with my mum, and they had a big workshop come in, and she just went, go talk to that lady. So I did. And I just kind of told her what I was doing and stuff. She was like, I've got a job for you. And I was like, oh, okay. And she sent me through this application, and it was very treaty based, and I was quite scared because I didn't know much about the treaty space. I knew the general gist of it, but not enough to actually apply it to everyday life. So I kind of went in regardless into the interview, and my manager now, he hit me with the question of, if you were the CEO of this company and you were to redo it all with treaty values, what would you do? And I was like, I don't know. I just fully stopped, and it was just terrifying. And somehow I got the job from there, and then I kind of was like, oh, okay, we're in the health space now, which was quite funny because all of my sociology papers were actually health focused without my intending to. I was just like, they seem interesting. So that's kind of how I got into the space I am now.
Ka pai. And so how are you finding that, having been through university as a young mother, facing those challenges, those judgments? I know that you've spoken out about the stigma that young parents such as yourself face. Tell us some of the stories and what you've learned from some of those challenges that other people have put in front of you.
Yeah, it was quite isolating a lot of the time, not only being a young mama but being brown. And in my uni classes, a lot of the time being the only Māori in the class. All of my lecturers, all of my tutors were Pākehā or some form of. And then all of my friends were living their uni lives, but I had to go home at a certain time to go pick up my baba from daycare, and then I could leave at a certain time but still couldn't go out and have as much fun because I still had to be a mama the next morning kind of thing. And then getting into the workspace, I've been lucky because my mum has always worked kind of in understanding our culture and how to apply it and how much the public service space isn't that safe culturally for us. And so coming into the job that I'm in now, I went in and been like, yeah, it's fine. And now I'm almost a year in and I'm realising it's not that fine. Because you see all the issues, the more you understand and the more things come to light and how you understand it all. And I've struggled with being too young, or I've been considered a firecracker and hard-headed. And I'm like, why can't I just be called ambitious or something like that? So it's quite interesting, but have taken that to be like, okay, if you're not going to listen to me and you think I'm those things, I'm going to be those things. So just kind of taking it in my own stride and trying to move away from that mean Māori woman view to the ambitious and powerful Māori woman view. Yeah.
Ka pai koe. So it sounds like there can be a bit of an impasse where you're bringing your youthful energy and wise thinking based on your experiences and also based on that sort of innovative energy of what's really going on in the community. And then there are people stuck in their ways which are not responsive, are not tiriti based. What's the solution to that kind of standoff position?
I think it's more or less giving Māori that power, so that leadership power, so putting them in those roles that will make those changes and giving them those end call decisions. Because a lot of the time when we have the Pākehā and those ones, they're going to go for the safe route. They're going to go for the route that they think is going to work, when realistically, if you're making something for Māori and Pacifica, it's not going to work. You need to go in the direction of the audience that you're going for, and you're telling us not to use it.
Are there certain words that have come up that seem to be real hotspot words that get that sort of response? Can you share some of those with us?
Yeah, one of them was quite a while back, and it was the term mama. And we had some really big pushback on that, because even though it's such a strong word, if you use it correctly, it's not offensive. Well, and it's not scary. Like, we know what it is and it encompasses what it is. And the term, I can't quite remember what kind of way we were using it, but it was really right in the way that it was. And even I have my principal advisor, I kind of look to him for more of the language stuff, because he's got more of that knowledge, and he was perfectly fine with it.
Right.
But on other, like, alcohol campaigns, they tried to use the word before, and they were just like, nah, doesn't work, it's not okay. And we're like, but was it a Māori and Pacifica based campaign, or was it whatever campaign you felt like putting out at the time? So yeah, that's one of the big ones I've noticed. And yeah, kind of just colloquial language comes into it sometimes, because there's that difference of speaking in a like chill Māori way to kind of degrading us.
Right.
Like making us sound dumb, when it's like, that's a stereotype that you've put on us that we talk like that. But actually we know some big words. We don't cut down all of our sentences sort of stuff. So yeah, that's an interesting one sometimes that we see on slang and taglines and stuff like that.
This is a very good point, that stereotypic, racist perpetuation of, oh, this is how Māori people are, this is how we communicate. So how have you managed to create some leverage around influencing people at higher decision-making levels of the organisation to really help them to see that those sorts of choices that they're making are racist?
The one big thing I've been doing is calling them out, which a lot of people don't like, but I will get all my ducks in a row. I'll do all of my research. I'll email everyone who I need to, because I know that if I go forward with them with something they're not happy with and that they're like, we're not racist, that they'll just brush it under the rug. Right. Whereas if I get enough of my managers involved, and if I moan and whine to someone else about it and other people hear the story, and then I can actually be like, hey, you need to sort this out, and all these other people are behind me.
Goodbye.
It works that way, and that's kind of how I've done it, and I've just been quite staunch a lot of the time, and quite a few of my decisions that I'm just learning now, people aren't going to listen to me a lot of the time, because I'm a young Māori wahine, so I need to make them listen. And that's something I'm coming into the space with now as well, is that I'm allowed to be heard, and I should be heard, and regardless of my colour or my age, I've got the job for a reason. They hired me for a reason, and we're all sitting at the same level. So, yeah.
Ka pai. Where do you source this an energy to carry on like that? Because that's a brilliant, courageous approach, and it does require a lot of determination and energy. So how do you maintain that stance? Where do you get your own inspiration from?
My aunties, I've got to say.
Ka pai aunties.
Well, I've had such strong female influence throughout my whole life, and then underneath that, all of my male relationships, like with my uncles and my dad and my grandpa, have been really strong and stable. And I know I'm so like privileged to have that, and they just drive me like every day. Like I'll come home and have a big old rant to my mum, and she'll bring it back. We'll have this massive good discussion about it for like 45 minutes, and then my dad will jump in, and he's from the UK, like came here when he was 21, and he has time struggling with Māori words, but he gets it, and he'll jump in as well. And it's so nice having that other side. And all my aunties are staunch Māori women who get what they want and do what they want, and so I've always had that to look up to, which has been awesome, because they're those ones that can look at you across the whareka and you're like, okay, I need to sit up straight and all that kind of stuff. So I've always had an amazing support system, and I'm a crier, so sometimes I just need to have a day where I have a fat cry and just let it out, and then like, okay, I'm over it now. We can go back to it.
Ka pai. I think it's really helpful to tell those stories, because I'm sure you're already thinking about your own succession planning and other young wahine coming through, and how you create space for them as you move into those senior decision-making roles. What's your advice for young wahine Māori who perhaps have had their babies young also, and who face the sort of racism, the sort of judgments that you faced? What are some of the key lessons that you can pass on?
I think the main one for me is, as much as I think about what other people think of me, is just to still do what you want to do. Because with high school and uni, if you look at statistics, everything was against me, but realistically, they weren't. Like, I was not great at school. I was not great at uni. The whole C's get degrees thing is just kind of how I got by. And so it was kind of like, I wanted it just because, and I don't like to fail, and failing's not a big issue, but it's as long as you keep going for it, I found just really helps. And I've done a lot of it in my head. I've been alone, but knowing that I'm not is a really nice thing to know, because sometimes, like I've said before, you feel isolated in what you're doing, but if you actually go do it, you do realise that you've got help. You've just got to ask for it, which I know a lot of Māori wahine and Māori in general struggle with, is the actual asking for help, because we're allowed it. Everyone's allowed help, and it's just accepting that is sometimes the sticky spot.
Did you find that there was a kind of racism that influenced the help that you received or didn't receive at school, at university, in other aspects of the community?
Yeah, I think it was more the institutionalised way of it and how I understood everything. So I just figured, I'm brown, I shouldn't go to uni. If I finish high school, that's just how it will be, kind of thing. Right. And so it was just kind of, that inner side of it all. So I wouldn't go get help, because I didn't think they would end up helping me as much as I could be helped. And I've had issues with GPs in the past, being like, I used to get a cough every winter religiously because I'm on that asthma borderline. And the one time I went with my mum instead of my dad, and she went from if you start smoking to when you start smoking. And I was like 12 at the time, I think it was. And it was just a really weird contrast of having my dad and I in the room, and then my mum and I in the room with the same doctor, and she just fully flipped it, and it was an interesting experience to say, and that's always stuck with me. So it's the not expecting much when you ask for help has always been the biggest thing for me, that I need to be like, actually no, if I'm unwell, I should go get the help that I need and not just think it will pass and stuff like that.
So it sounds like, you had a lot of experiences where you learned to expect less.
Yep.
And that's something we know through research, that this is something that all Māori and Pacifica young people experience at school, and there's lots of research about that in health services too. So in your role at Te Herenga Hauora, what are some ways that you can scrutinise the work based on your lived experience of racism as you're growing up and now? What are some of the ways that you can scrutinise that work to really try to make sure that that's not being perpetuated wittingly deliberately or more covertly in the messaging of your agency?
I've been working on that a lot at the moment, because going into that role I knew that I needed to make the space better for Māori as my priority, and I got given this role and I had to communicate with service providers, and it was like mainly Pacifica or Māori service providers, and I had a big cry about it because I was so stressed because I wanted to get it right. I wanted to give them what they deserved and what they've been deprived of for so long. When it comes to cultural things, people are too scared.
Right.
And they think that if they target Māori and Pacifica, we're stereotyping them. But what I'm finding is that they don't understand that those stereotypes are our lives. So it's not like they're like, oh yeah, it's mainly Māori women who are at the pokie machines and have pokie addictions. And they're like, oh, we can't just like enforce the image. It's like, but no, that is the case. Like, it's not a made up idea. It's because you guys have done that, like, just years and years of colonization really has put that image onto us, and it's an image that it is, and we need to acknowledge that and change it, but they don't want to acknowledge it in the first place.
Right, right. So what I'm hearing is that you're experiencing that tension of the stereotype, and sometimes that's a really clearly racist stereotype, and other times the evidence is that there's a lot of people engaged in that behaviour that you want to change, and how to portray that accurately. So that tension between the accurate portrayal of what's needed and a stereotype.
Yeah, it's a really tricky space because we have those really negative stereotypes that we don't want to live up to, but it's that thing that we need to accept that they are real. And it's that first step of accepting that we can actually go ahead and make the change and go and help those people, because if people just keep ignoring it, it's not going to be brought to light, and the government's not going to put any money towards it. So it needs to be acknowledged and accepted sometimes that we're in those sticky spots and someone needs to help.
Definitely hard to strike that balance in a way that's going to actually be helpful for the people that need it the most.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a racism-free Aotearoa and what part you'd like to play in that?
I kind of can. I'm a big believer that people are good and people are bad kind of thing. And I'd like to believe that we could be free of racism, but I just don't feel like that will quite happen in my lifetime anyways. Even though I'm only 23, I can still sit here and be like, I don't trust a lot of the people who say they're going to make a change, because it's the whole trust thing is just kind of like, you see government for centuries being like, we're going to fix this, and they don't. And you see people for years being like, yeah, I'm going to do this, and they never do. And it's like, as much as I want to do my part in normalising everything, I still feel like we can work hard to make it less, but there's still going to be those people who bring the whole boat down.
Do you think it's a generational thing? So, to put it simply, there will be generations who will pass on, and their influence, which is, from another era, the perhaps hardcore Pākehā racism, that will be diminished because that generation of people will have passed on. Do you think that that's true?
I think that would definitely happen. Just from my eyes, seeing how I've grown, and then also my peers as well. It's just if I look at the cultural side of things, I've grown into my Māori space a lot more from when I was little, and I felt that plastic Māori kind of stereotype that was going around, and I felt that was really me, because I didn't spend much time at the marae because my maraes are up north and we're centred here, and my great-grandparents weren't allowed to speak reo, and so my grandparents never learnt, and it's that whole thing. And I just feel that even with the whole LGBTQ society now, everyone is so open to change and actually accepting. So definitely as generations go on, I feel like the whole tendency of racism will diminish a bit, but it really, like Josiah was saying in the other podcast, it's the government that needs to change it, and it's the policy that actually needs to change, and that will be the hard one, because you can have the society and the community that's accepting, but you need the actual policy to change for it to be inclusive.
And as someone who is fairly early in your career in that policy space or moving in those areas of influence, can you see yourself in your future career continuing to grow down that path? Is that a future that you see for yourself?
Maybe. I'm not 100% sure yet. I'm still figuring out how I feel about it, and I might go down the full community route or higher up. But yeah, maybe is all I can really say. I'm not a big plan maker, because I know that things change and I know that plans always don't follow through, and so I like to kind of keep the books open. But if something pops up and they want me in that space, I'll happily go. And if I like to kind of just go with the flow and see where everything takes me, which is why I'm here now and the space that I'm in. So I think, yeah, the universe has a plan, so if I end up there, it's just all a part of the plan.
So maybe finally then, you've got a beautiful 5-year-old son, and it's possible that he may face some racist responses through his schooling, through his journey. What are the things that you would like to see put in place that mean that he's protected from that?
I think he's quite lucky with how the school curriculum is at the moment, because they're so inclusive and open about Māori and all that kind of stuff. And it sounds bad, but he's lucky because he's one of the waka blondes in the family. So he's my little Cupid-looking baby with blonde curly hair. So on the racial side of things, he doesn't look necessarily Māori, which is, I think, if he were to have any issues with racism in the future, would be him, if he ever chooses to pursue something more on the cultural side of things, is that he won't look the part unless he has a tamoko, or if he has something showing that he is somewhat cultural. And it is that thing of, there is that hard place of people who think that a white person talking to them about their culture is not okay, but they might think that he's in that side of things when he's not. So I think that might be the side that he takes. But the schooling curriculum at the moment and the way that kids are these days, they're so open and accepting, and if it's anything, it's going to be his long hair that he's going to get picked on for or something. So yeah.
Ka pai. Ngā mihi nui ki a koe. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and if you want to know more about this kaupapa, please check out our website. Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou.